Robert F. Williams, Afro-American refugee from racial oppression in the USA, former official of the NAACP, author of the book Negroes with Guns.
Presently, we must use whatever method in our possession. We must make use of the gas bomb, the lycan, the ice pick, the switchblade, the axe, the hatchet, the razor, the brick, and the bullet. Next year, we shall meet machine gun with machine gun, hand grenade with hand grenade, in a new spirit of meeting violence with violence.
Now, did you ever feel that what you were doing was in any way act of treason or unpatriotism towards your country, towards the United States of America, or had you abandoned America? Did you feel you were now a Cuban, or what?
No, I don't believe any man who lives under tyranny in a government can ever be truthfully accused of treason. Treason can only come when a man is entitled to the rights and privileges, and he is protected by his government, and then he betrays that government. Then he can be accused of treason. But when the government betrays its trust to its people, then the government is what is guilty, is the guilty party to treason. And I consider the government of the United States to have failed the black people in America in protecting the rights of black people and the enforcement of the Constitution.
The lawlessness that broke out with unbridled fury in the Watts section of Los Angeles was deplored by responsible Negroes and whites alike.
In the spirit of '76, in the spirit of Los Angeles, let our people take to the streets in fierce numbers, and in the cause of freedom and justice, let our battle cry be heard around the world. Freedom, freedom, freedom now, or death.
I think all of us kind of, during that period, felt a certain amount of the romance of revolution. And we felt that it might work, you know, it might overcome the odds, you know, where everyone was telling you can't use these tactics because you're only 1/10 of the population. Well, you know, you look around the world during that time and you saw in Castro's Cuba that a small group of revolutionaries had overcome a government. So it seemed, well, maybe it's possible.
Negroes with Guns came out in 1962, and it's really probably the most important intellectual influence from the Black Panther Party. It's kind of a founding document of the Black Power movement in many ways.
I think that influence is something that comes through the 1960s as a theme, ending up with the Black Panther Party, which is the Black Panther Party for self-defense. And again, I think that's something that has very strong roots in American traditions.
But I tell you, that book, just the very title, I thought was so great. Negroes with Guns. You know, we've always had white power, and no one's quivered in the face of that. But all of a sudden, black power comes. A small minority, 10% of the population, says we want black power, and the country goes into paroxysms of fear and condemnation and scorn.
They were becoming more radical. They were becoming less patient with the nonviolent and patient philosophy that was coming out of the civil rights movement. And they saw him, because you have to remember, they saw Robert Williams as a heroic figure. You know, he was brave, he stood up, you know, spoke his mind, he was a man.
I know that they rebroadcast some of our Radio Free Dixie on Radio Hanoi.
It is a crying shame that hypocritical and double-dealing Mr. Charlie has the audacity to rabble-rouse racist America to the point of accepting massive violence against the innocent people of Vietnam, while brainwashing the oppressed Negro to adhere to the masochistic philosophy of nonviolence. Yes, Big Daddy orders a semi-state of war footing and dispatches elite troops to defend Mr. Charlie's version of democracy in Vietnam, while Afro-Americans bleed and die from the lack of police protection in the black ghettos of racist America. What a sham. What blatant hypocrisy.
I was concerned about what the government was going to say about all of our speeches, and I knew that we had to continue doing something, and that was our way of fighting the injustices that were going on against our people in the United States. And so I was not so concerned that I was willing to stop doing what we had to do.
Well, he was more of a pawn than a player in the Cold War. He's, you know, the Cuban Revolution prided itself on its racial egalitarianism. So to shelter the fleeing black activist from the South was help them politically. But that was not a perfect marriage, because Robert wasn't a communist, and he wasn't anybody's party line man in any sense.
As an individual, they treated me quite well in Cuba. But with some of the party people, I had some problem. They took the position that my position would drive a wedge between the white working class and the black if blacks used my method for self-defense. So as a result of this, there was this friction. So, and then I had to leave Cuba.
I wanna go home. Oh, how I wanna go home.
The Chinese people warmly welcome Mr. Robert Williams, noted Afro-American leader, and Mrs. Williams. Wherever they go, Mr. and Mrs. Robert Williams are cordially welcomed by the Chinese people, who deeply admire the just struggle of the black people in the United States.
He kept trying to return to the United States, but he kept being turned down. He approached the Swiss to intercede for him, and because the United States did not want him back in the United States, the whole idea was to get rid of him as a leader of a movement. And I missed our people because I was thrown into an environment of total strangers. I made friends wherever I went, but I missed mostly just the comradeship of my friends and family.
What you have to understand about the decision of the United States government to let Robert Williams come home in 1969 is that the Nixon administration was moving towards opening diplomatic relations with China.
Chairman Mao Zedong, our most beloved and respected leader, comes to the rostrum on top of Tiananmen Gate Tower. Mr. and Mrs. Robert Williams are among the distinguished guests on the rostrum.
This was in the period of the Cultural Revolution. It was China was closed off and chaotic. And the State Department very much wanted to know what Robert Williams knew.
Robert Williams, a fugitive and one of the first of the black militants, is being supplied with an entire jetliner for his return tomorrow from a self-exiled in communist and African lands. He's wanted on 8-year-old kidnapping charges in North Carolina involving a white couple allegedly taken hostage during racial disorders. Williams has been held in Great Britain for the last week since airlines refused to honor his ticket to Detroit, the base of a black separatist movement which made him its president. The airlines feared a possible hijacking or civil demonstrations. At the request of the U.S. government, Trans World Airlines changed its position, but said a special flight would be arranged to carry only Williams and his lawyer. Their tickets cost $282 each. The flight will cost TWA about $20,000.